Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Kelly. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Of course, you've been involved in some great films. Trafficked. You were in Slayers, which I like. Of course, it's a horror movie, so yeah.
Yeah,
But Trafficked is really kind of disturbing in many ways. It's very tough.
it was. Yeah. Yeah, that movie came out at a time when no one was really talking about human trafficking. It was very early in that conversation. Obviously, that's a big topic now. Lots of movies have come out and really shined a light on that. But when we did that movie, that was very early on. The writer of that movie was Um, I guess he was kind of a famous guy in his own right. He was the authority on human trafficking. He pioneered and created and taught and still teaches the human trafficking course at Harvard University. He had left his career as an investment banker in Wall Street and had been traveling the world rescuing young girls out of human trafficking. And he wrote that screenplay wanting to shine more of a light on the topic. And he chose three actual real life stories of three different girls. He changed their names to keep them anonymous, and then he put them all into um, one, I guess you could say, um, not true story because they intertwined, but actually their stories individually were actually true. So it was based on true stories. And I had just produced one of my first movies with my producing partner, who was my acting coach at the time. And based on the success of that, which was Butterfly Caught, he handed me the script and said, "Hey, read this, see if you want to make it. It's been sitting for about 4 years, and they haven't had much success in getting it made." And I read that script, and I just couldn't believe what I was reading. I was sad and crying and angry and when I got through reading it, I was like, this is not one of those stories you can decide. Oh, I wonder if I want to make this movie. It's sort of when it lands on your desk, you don't have a choice. I feel like it's one of those movies where it becomes like an obligation. And I had produced one of my first movies I produced was with the guys that did Dallas Buyers Club, and they like doing those movies that kind of impact the world. And I remember reading that thinking, oh man, I got to send this to those guys. So I sent it to those guys, and he read it. He has a daughter, and he called me back and he said, I'm in. We got to make this movie. And he became the first investor in the movie. And then we were off to the races. And then we actually didn't have all the actors. We just decided, me and my acting coach, former acting coach and producing partner, we just said, we're going to make this movie on this date. And if we only have this amount of money, well, then we'll make it for this amount of money. And we thought, because we only had like 400,000 at the time, and we thought if we had 600,000, we'll make it for 600,000. And then once we decided we were going to make it, it's like interesting thing how the world works. When you make a decision, the world just shifts, right? And we reached out to Ashley Judd, and she expressed interest in playing one of the lead roles. And the minute we got Ashley Judd, it was like every celebrity in town was just jumping on to the film, and they knew that we were serious and we had a start date. And before we knew it, we had 2.5 million, and we had a start date with a cast that was pretty incredible for that level of movie at the time.
Much.
And and then we ended up making it on a ranch that I grew up on in Bakersfield, California. For a portion of my childhood, I lived in Bakersfield, California, because my great uncle Buck Owens, I don't know if you heard of Buck Owens, lived out there,
Yeah.
and I had a single mom, so we went out there and lived with that family for a while. And I remember they were telling me for this film, they said, we need a ranch that looks like it could be at the south of the border and that they could traffic women on. And I thought, well, I know a ranch. I don't know about if it looks like they traffic women there, but I know a ranch. And I called up my family, and they had sold the ranch to another guy. And I called him up, and he said, "Yeah, come out and film it on the ranch, and you can have the ranch for free." So we filmed it on the ranch, a ranch that I grew up on. So a lot of cool, interesting, serendipitous things happened for that movie.
Like it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. So I ended up being an executive producer, but I actually did a lot more than executive producing. I ended up doing a lot of producerial things on that set and ended up getting it made, which it sat for a while. And then I was also an actor in it. And they actually ended up taking my storyline out of the movie because it was a little too controversial. We were showing law enforcement being involved in the problem.
Yeah.
And now that's known, and it would have been okay. At the time, we were making a pretty bold statement.
Right.
We were worried that we were going to get some serious backlash from law enforcement. So I think one of the coolest scenes in the movie and the most impactful scenes and shocking scenes were my scenes. I played a Texas Ranger who was not the best guy, right?
Right.
And but they removed it because they were just worried that well, we were worried for our safety, frankly. You know, before we even made the movie, one of is am I is mine is the camera on me? Can you see me? My thing's doing some weird things. Um, but before we made the movie, we all got together as a producing team and we just said, hey, listen, this could be very dangerous. Is everybody okay with the risks of having their name associated with this? And we all decided that it needed to be made and we were going to do it. But it was a conversation back then. It's still dangerous to make those movies, but at the time, it was really dangerous.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah,
And those you got to watch when you have law enforcement involved with things like that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially back then, no one was talking about that, and no one even knew it. Matter of fact, it was shocking to me. So, um, yeah, we were on some sketchy territory back then.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But since on you've moved to horror movies like Slayers, and you have a very interesting movie coming up now, The Eyes in the Trees.
Yeah,
A little
thank
bit
you.
about it. There's not a whole lot out there right this second on about it.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of deadline articles, but that's really more about what actors were coming into play for it. That was an interesting, that movie is kind of a timeless subject. I guess it's very relevant today and has been going on for quite a while. H.G. Wells wrote the novel that is based on. And they did that movie. The Island of Doctor Moreau is the name of the book, and then they made, I believe, two movies over the years. And the last one was starring Marlon Brando as the mad scientist, and it's that whole theme where you have this mad scientist who wants to push the edge of the envelope with biological testing on monkeys. And of course, the government won't let him because it's illegal. So he goes out to this remote island so he can do his testing unfettered. It's that whole mad scientist idea, and it's relevant today. We're still doing it, right? We're still testing on monkeys and doing things that probably we shouldn't be doing, right? And this time they got a really cool cast because Anthony Hopkins, I couldn't think of a better person to play that Marlon Brando role. And they renamed Eyes in the Trees just to have it would have its own new feeling, but it's really a remake of The Island of Doctor Moreau again. And we went to Thailand to make it, and I got to play another bad guy. You know, until you're the lead, you seem to play a lot of bad guys, right? I've been Butterfly Caught, I played the lead, but I was the good guy. And then ever since then, I seem to be getting these bad guy roles. So it's very interesting. But I played a American in Thailand who was running a bunch of poker rooms and gambling, really kind of a gambling mob boss. And I come across the pathway of one of the leads, played by Jonathan Rhys Meyers, who plays this journalist who's going out to really find out and research what's happening on this island. And he steals money from one of my tables. And so I come after him and I teach him a little bit of a lesson.
Right. And then, I mean, it's a fantastic cast. It really is. I mean, you don't get any better than Anthony Hopkins.
No, you don't.
He's like, you know what I mean? He's like the
Yeah,
top.
he's the top.
He's brilliant. And I mean, the entire cast is talented.
He really
Um,
was. And Jonathan Rhys Meyers, I have to say I was very impressed with. I think he's very talented. Uh, he did a lot of improvisation on the go, which was fun to do with him, and it was fun to go toe to toe with him and give him a lot of respect. He uh, very very talented actor. And I also really thought Ashley Greene was great too. She was in another movie that was a kind of a horror movie, I guess you could say, vampire movie. I think you know what I'm talking about. Um, but they both were fun to work with, talented, and was really felt honored to get to work with them.
right. Well, what is the difference between this movie and, The Island of Doctor Moreau that came out?
I wouldn't say there's a huge difference. I mean, the overall concept and framework of the movie are very similar. Um, they might have made it a little bit more modern with the dialogue and having this sort of romantic banter between Jonathan and Ashley's character. I think that would be the kind of the newer aspect of it. They really kind of gave it more of it feels more social media aware than because that wasn't even going on in the 60s, right? So we're in a different time. So there's definitely this more kind of a quick cut, I'd say a younger kind of humor that's a little faster is definitely at work. I think that those are some things you'll notice. And there's some really cool special effects actiony sequences that weren't possible back then. So the movie feels current, faster, and definitely very in touch with kind of where we are in our social media environment. And I think those will be some aspects you'll notice a difference of.
So when can we see this movie?
I think this is slated to come out first quarter of 2026. So
Okay.
they're using this year to do post-production. There's a lot of effects. It's a very heavy effects-driven movie, so that takes a lot of funds and time, and then they're going to try to slate it into the right place for next year. So I think it's going to be coming out early part of 2026.
Awesome. Awesome. I love those dark movies that have got that social commentary buried in there, not even buried like right there, but they're serious and dark, but creative in the process. And I think that's really important when it comes to telling a story.
Yeah.
Is to have something that just kind of hooks you in, and especially when it comes to like animal testing, which is a very important subject.
Yeah.
And and the drama that, comes along with that. So I think it's sorry, my dog is barking.
Please. I couldn't even hear him. So you got a
Really? Oh,
great sound setup.
awesome. Okay. But, I think it's important for people to see those. And then when you mix that with the story, it grabs their attention.
Yeah.
And that's, it's really important, especially you can get a cast like that. I mean, it's really, they're all big names. And I mean, Benny Hopkins, what more do you want?
I know. It's right. You're totally right. You're like, okay, we just hit the top. Okay, where do you go from there?
Exactly, exactly. So, tell me a little bit about the director and working
Director
with him.
Tim was it was interesting. Every director has this thing. A lot of directors will be very meticulous and storyboard everything out beforehand, and then there's not a ton of room for ad-libbing or creativity or improvisation. Tim worked very much different than that. He was very much into um, giving every scene and every actor their chance to really put their stamp on things, and that's fun. And that's probably a symptom of him being younger. He was a younger director, a newer kind of newer on the scene, I guess you could say, rather than these directors have been around for decades. And that was fun. I walked in the scene having really memorized all my lines, thinking, okay, this is how this is going to go down. And I arrived there, and they're like, okay, so we're throwing away the first half, and I was like, whoa, wait, or the first quarter. And I remember thinking, wow, okay, then we're kind of just starting over here, and you just have to be able to roll with it. So a lot of the scene changed right in front of my eyes, and that's fun if you're open to it. I like being thrown curveballs. I like when my back's against the wall. I like to have to perform under some interesting circumstances, and um, yeah, so it was fun. It was fun to do that, and it was fun to watch Jonathan just roll because Jonathan wasn't prepared for these changes either, and he just came up with a whole little bit right away, and we just started working off of each other. So it was fun to see how quickly he adapted and changed as well. So it was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed working with Tim and hope to work with him again.
Right, right. I imagine, and that spur of the moment kind of creativity, I'm sure, helps define your character. Because, with you in that moment with them.
I think it did. What it made me do is it made me really rely on, okay, who am I? And how do I feel about this? And I just really felt like I was very pissed, and I was angry because this guy comes through out of nowhere and steals a large amount of money from one of my tables and just thinks he can kind of charm his way out and waltz off. And I just thought, well, how would you feel if that had really happened to you? And what message would you want to leave this person, right?
Right.
And I have two henchmen with me, and what do I want them to think? Because if they don't think I'm the man,
Yeah.
it's gonna fall apart pretty quickly, right?
Right.
So it was fun because I had to really rely on, okay, well, who am I? And how angry am I? And what do I want to do to this guy? And I really relied on that. So I went to the darkest place I could uh, in that scene.
That's amazing. And you have a couple of other projects coming out, do you not? Maserati and what's the other one? Dream Big? Is that
Dream
right?
big. That's right. Yeah, Maserati was a newer one that started coming around when I was in Thailand. And when I got back, my agent let me know that there's some opportunity to help potentially get the movie made and produce from an executive standpoint. And so I worked with, I knew some people that would be interested in investing in that film and being a part of it. And I was able to get them involved. And so I've been a part of co-producing Maserati, which will be coming out, I think, end of this year, early next year as well. And that'll be a fun one. That'll be starring, again, Anthony Hopkins. Coincidentally, that's 2 films in a row, which I didn't anticipate. So funny. You say you want to work with these people, and all of a sudden it just happens, and then you're in 2. But that's what I'm just producing on, and I got involved late in that process. But Andy Garcia is playing one of the Maserati brothers, and Jessica Alba is playing one of the key characters in that as well. And then we have another actor, some talented actors that are leads on series as well that are in that movie. So really great people. The director is Bobby Moresco, very talented writer-director. He wrote the film as well. He did the movie Ferrari already. So these are very talented people that are doing this project. It's a $60 million budget, so it's a very big project. And yeah, it's just excited to be a part of it, just even from a producerial standpoint. Yeah, and you mentioned Dream Big. And Dream Big is much more of a passion project. I was involved with that at the early inception. The creators of that project are great friends of mine. The writer I met in Cannes at the Cannes Film Festival in 2018. She's the creator, and then the co-writing partner which is how I met her, was one of my longtime friends, Obi and Defo. And Sophie was the writer, Sophie Meyers. She's a French actress and writer. And then Obi and Defo, which was Harry Belafonte's nephew, and a long time, one of my first friends I ever met in LA when I moved there from Texas. He was probably one of the main writers. Once she was the creator, he was kind of more of the writer of the dialogue. And they brought me in on that project early on to be one of the main cast members and to help produce later on down the road. But that didn't happen right away. First, I was just cast in it, and I played a really cool character. That series needs to be made because it's about 5 characters that all have physical limitations. Some, one girl has an eating disorder. One guy's lost his legs. One girl, she has a kind of a vision disorder. They all have these what we call handicaps or limitations in life. And when they meet each other throughout life, they unlock each other's superpowers. And when I mean superpowers, I mean not technically like a Marvel film, but like there are things in life that make them exceptional and unique. And it's really cool to see how they unlock these superpowers in each other, and it shines a light much brighter than whatever other limitation they're dealing with. And it makes them kind of break through and become these incredible people that do super incredible things in life. Very inspirational, very much about where we are today, about just it being about breaking beyond your limitations and not having handicaps or things that your perceived weaknesses hold you back in life. It's really, really cool. Unfortunately, the writer of that, Obi, passed away from an eating disorder this year. And his presence is definitely missed, and huge loss, but makes me want to even get that project made even more now. But we filmed that last year in LA, and it's in post-production. There's a lot of effects that are going to be needed in that movie as well, but it's a TV series, not a movie. But we shot the first pilot as a movie. We shot it. It's 2 hours long. It's meant to break open the series, and then it was going to be about these people's lives and how they intertwine and evolve and meet each other. And it's really, really cool. And I hope it gets the home it needs to get. And I'm going to do everything I can to help it get there.
Yeah, that's amazing. The stories need to be told.
Yes.
very much so. Um,